Hello and welcome to the Finding North podcast. My name is Florian.
And I am Fahim Florian.
Join our Sunday conversations where we discuss breaking news of the week around big tech and share our thoughts around all things business, careers, and how to find your true north in life.
Let's get this show started. Episode number 4.
Four in a row.
4 in a row, although we should admit to the audience that this particular episode, it was close to not happening because we were both looking for an excuse not to do it. But somehow we've managed to do it later on in the day. We were worried about maybe we've run out of things to say, but I thought to ourselves that, look, let us get on it and maybe a conversation will come. So yeah, how were you feeling towards this episode 4? Were you
now after we actually jumped on a call and we discussed what we could actually discuss, and we had quite a lot of things to discuss, we probably did a bit of overthinking in advance. And for me, it was also that maybe my mood the last 48 hours has generally been suffering, because of other non-podcast related things. And then that obviously, maybe then you're less likely to okay, let's jump on a call and pretend to everything is going well and you're happy and let's share that with the world. So, but yeah, I'm glad we're doing it. We said that's the whole goal of this is to just keep going, right? And get into routine. Absolutely. Regardless if we feel good or bad, or if the response is great or not so great, we're just going to keep doing that. Perseverance first and foremost. So yeah, I'm glad we're in it, and I'm pretty sure we will find some interesting things to talk about, hopefully.
Let's say fingers crossed, right? Yeah, no, I think this reminds me of with anything that you start, there is a lot of energy behind it at first. So you're excited, you're energized, you've got lots of ideas. But like with anything, there will be a point where you go through this bump and you tell yourself, I could do without this for now. And if you let that creep in before you know it, the ideas that you had and where it may lead to. Remember, I'll just as you were speaking, we discussed how, the causality effect, the more you talk. So I think I'm, like you said, glad we've managed to pull each other. And I think this is another benefit of maybe having another accountable person or having somebody that you don't want to let down.
Rather than if you just be by yourself, right? Like you're like, okay, come on, I'll just do it next week then.
Yeah. It's amazing. Your brain is a very sophisticated organ, right? But it's amazing the excuses it comes up with to not do something. The level
of creativity you suddenly discover, right? It's like
absolutely. You're like, oh my God, I am quadruple bluffing myself on this. I know I'm not supposed to do this, but the excuse is so right?
Yeah. I think it's very interesting what you just said. I think it's a typical honeymoon phase that you go through in life with so many different things, right? If it's a new job, a relationship, a new hobby that you find, you always have this initial excitement because it's new. You always wanted to do it, and then you go in it, and you have this natural level of energy, that you put towards it. That becomes very natural, right? And then you go through maybe the first couple of days, practices, weeks, years, whatever, depending what we're talking about. And then at one point you're like, this initial sort of drive, maybe then you hit some bumps in the road or whatever. And then the perseverance to then actually see it through and keep pushing through. I think that's it's a concept that keeps coming up in life all the time, I guess.
I think perseverance is a key one in anything in life. You and I always joke about there are many great ideas, right? But without execution, doesn't really mean anything. And perseverance, especially, this reminds me of a quote that somebody, I think it was Ray Dalio, that says, "Look, struggle well. Life is a struggle. right?
Exactly.
So
Right.
if you can struggle well with it and persevere, eventually, you'll get there.
And
So I think, for those of the few folk that are listening, I mean, I know there are many bigger challenges in the world, but Florian and I getting to podcast number 4 has been a bit of perseverance was required.
yeah, especially with, like, for me personally, the last 48 hours, which have been more, like in the moment, more like struggle than struggle well. But like at the end of the day, that's it's good that you remind me of that again, because it is actually struggling well. It's some of this thing you just need to go through, because you might be in the middle of it, you can't see the end of the tunnel yet, but why you're doing it. And actually the struggle and the process is most of the time the reward, right? That's what we always talk about. But sometimes the process is just a little bit more painful on one days than the other. So
it's never easy.
And that's about perseverance. And also with this whole thing, and then I'll go into my first question that I have for you this week is a very good example here that I always refer to is like Gary Vaynerchuk, who did his wine library TV initially for like an audience of like 3 people, right? And he kept doing it, and he kept doing it, and he kept doing it, and no one was watching it,
for
many years, right? And he did, I don't know how many dozens and dozens and dozens of episodes, and you could argue, well, okay, but then that also didn't grow too big, but I guess without him doing this, like then Wine Library and everything that happens afterward, and with like Vayner Media and so on, probably none of that would have happened if he would not have had the perseverance to do this, to sit there in front of the camera, doing his thing,
Day in, day
seeing
out.
the numbers that no one's actually caring about, and no one's listening, no one's watching, but he, like, the next day again and again and again. And same with this, right? And again, we don't have any ambition that this is going anywhere. Like, it makes us famous, but just keep doing it. So yeah, good. We said we've half an hour.
We've motivated ourselves to make us feel good about ourselves.
Yeah.
Let's get into some topics.
Let's get into some topics. So first question that I said I want to sort of like throw at you and just get your thoughts on it. We said we want to talk about the big 4 tech companies sort of like every week. And one of the big stories of the last 2 weeks is the initiative between Google and Apple to now develop this. I think it's an SDK API. I'm not really sure how it's going to work.
Tracking thing, right?
To share their data. So then they're going to make that data available to developers of certain. Hopefully it must be government institutions to then work with this data, right? So I just want to get your thoughts on it, because I, for myself, haven't really figured out yet if, as much as the whole coronavirus needs, technology and innovative ideas to, get sort of like a grip on it. And if that can help, well, fair enough. At the same time, there was debates going on for years now around like encryption of phone data, and that not even the FBI should get access to an iPhone, and Apple has made like a big deal out of this the last couple of years. They've even done their brand positioning around this, right? To be when the whole Facebook thing happened around Cambridge Analytica, Apple almost doubled down and said, like, we are the encryption guys, we are like the privacy guys, we would never give any sort of like backdoor to any government official. So I've not done too much in-depth reading about it, so that's why it's hard for me to make a final decision on it yet. But yeah, I just want to get your thoughts on it. What do you think about if that's going to be a net good or net bad for society to now give actually potentially governments access to our phone data?
Yeah, no, very good question, actually. I did read about, I think it's maybe it's I don't know if it's a global initiative, but definitely a UK, the UK government has been entertaining the idea.
I think it's definitely the European Union is involved as well there. So okay. I think it might be actually a global one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what it is, right? So I think because Apple and Google, the Android system, are predominantly are the majority um, of the users of
Yeah.
mobile phones, nearly all of them, let's say
Yeah.
90 plus. They were going to use, I think, through their Bluetooth enabled technology to allow to track who you've been in close proximity with for a certain amount of time. And if that person, if one of those people then self-declares that they have got a COVID-19, then they will to a retracing of that can happen. So it alerts anybody that's been in close proximity for an amount of time to alert them. So you're right. It feels like a very good use case that a technology companies can solve. It was funny how the government in the UK, at least, came out with, because they know this is like a data privacy minefield, right? So they said, look, we're going to anonymize the data, we're going to delete it, it's going to be stored in a separate place, and all of that, right? But you know what? I think the intention may be nice, right? And it may help. But for me personally, once they collect all that data and see the value of it, they'll start to generate other use cases, whether it's like for security reasons or anything like that. And then before you know it, it becomes the norm, and some incident's going to happen, and then no one's going to really, if you complain about it, you're going to be seen as anti XYZ.
See that it's so funny that you say that, because that was exactly my thought as well, right? It's like almost on our topic from last week. Maybe the whole crisis just accelerating things that would have just happened anyway, right? And as you said, maybe this is now just like the first reasoning of governments that they need access to that data, right? And now in the future they will just come up with new, because now there's precedent there now, right? That there's it has happened before, they've done it before, why not in the future? If that it helped in the past with like controlling the global pandemic, well, in the future it's going to help with XYZ, and I think this is why I get a bit of like some stomach pain thinking about it. I'm like, something doesn't feel 100% right. I want this to be helpful, so less people, get infected, less people die, the economy, will recover quicker, we can all like go back to normal. At the same time, this is very short-term thinking. If that then means in the long term, as you said, it's a privacy and data minefield potentially that we're stepping in there, right? That is just
I think where it makes maybe a lot of people nervous is that there are one or two or limited entities, bodies that are able to then control this, and they will be responsible for its security and how it's used. So we talk about the dominance of the data pools, and how of a big play that is becoming. So I think, and a lot of those folks may not have a track record. They are there to make profits, and yes, they do offer good products and services. I personally would feel a bit more comfortable if something like blockchain was maybe used, so blockchain is a public ledger. No one entity has control over it. It's a self-fulfilling type of algorithm, something like that doesn't have one entity control over it. May have an edge, but whenever somebody has the keys to it and decides how it's used, who it's used by, that's where I think the nervousness is. But I think you make a good point that how we talked about things accelerating and being brought forward. You could see a society, the sci-fi films that you see, you know, the Steven Spielbergs of the world, of flying cars and drones, and Black Mirror. If you remember Black Mirror, where your social profile will then determine what you get access to in society.
Yeah, something that is already happening in China, right?
China, right? Yeah, in China, if you don't have a certain national rating, you don't get certain, you know, credit or products or services. So, you know, that is a scary thought. But what about?
I think we should. I think this is like. I think it's a topic we should just like maybe keep an eye on, and then once in a while come.
It's a rabbit hole. Otherwise,
we can't really solve this right now, right? I think it's something maybe also just for the purpose of everyone who might be listening to it and hasn't been come across that news. I think it's something to be aware of. I think, you know, everyone sort of should be aware that this might be happening right now. You know, some of those things you might miss in the wave of all the news that is coming in every day, right? So you might have missed that one. But yeah, let's keep an eye on that. So gonna do.
I had one. I had one for you. Something I think that happened this last week was Travis Scott. I know I'm not into the whole new rappers, you know, genre at the moment, but Travis Scott did a Fortnite virtual concert.
Yeah.
It was attended by nearly 13 million people. I saw some video clips of it, and I must say the show, on the island and the special effects that they were doing was quite amazing.
Yeah.
And you know, I kind of lost myself just being in there as well, even though I was watching a video replay of something. So before I share my opinions, what are your thoughts on this whole virtual?
It's actually so there were a couple of people actually last week who sort of sent that to me, right, from my friends and so on, and it seemed just that sort of says that it has been resonating with people, that this whole what happened there, right? And there's definitely a couple of thoughts. So number one, I think the whole area of like superstars, either sports or musicians and so on, and the whole gaming industry is something that I've been sort of observing over the last 2 years. And I think there's this weird synergy. I don't know what it is, like that those areas attract each other, because like if you follow certain, like, you know, football players, basketball players, American football, whatever, right, and musicians, they all have this tendency to game, you know, like Fortnite, Madden, NBA, and so on. So there's this natural tendency that, or two fields that gravitate towards each other, right? Which is, I think, a very interesting concept. And then the second one, so with Travis Scott just, you know, doing his concert in Fortnite, you know, obviously a lot of musicians now, they need to find other ways to probably do their world tour, or DJs, you know, I think we spoke about this, where DJs like now put up their turntables in their living room, and then they stream it, and people then listen in, and maybe they donate something. But to use the Fortnite platform, right, and then not just film it, but like make it like a virtual experience, like virtual reality experience in the game, is something that I hadn't really thought of, that you could do that. Well,
very creative.
It's very, very creative, right? And then getting access to 13 million people with like a concert is just.
And it's an engaged audience, right? It's an 30 million engaged audience. Now, I was blown away by it. I've been following this, the esports championships. You know, Fortnite did a championship where the prize money a while back was more than like Wimbledon. You know, so it's very lucrative. But I think the creativity at this particular Travis Scott concert just brought to bear was just amazing.
And I think it's sort of like sorry to jump in here, but like I think Travis Scott is also I think this was a deliberate move, right? Because I think it's this whole current pop culture scene. Because Travis Scott, I don't know how much we actually spoke about sneakers on when we spoke on Thursday, right? So Travis Scott sneakers are one of the highest selling sneakers out there, right? So every time Travis Scott actually, I think I'm not making this stuff up, but I'm pretty sure, I'm not too much into it, but like one of my mates is, and I'm pretty sure that the Travis Scott Jordans are some of the highest selling sort of like sneakers out there at the moment. So whenever there's a release, those are the ones that go for crazy money, right? So if you think about it, right? So that street style culture together with like the music, with the music, and then with like the gaming, online gaming. That's what I meant with synergy. You know, they sort of fit together, right? It's like the I haven't. We need to come up with a term for that probably, but that's why putting him in there also with this creativity aspect, I think just all makes sense, you know. And then
it does.
It's like a fulfilling promise or something like that.
That's right. So so I think that was amazing, and I think he's going to do more. The thing is, it was a live stream performance, 15 minutes, and you needed to get into the Fortnite island like half an hour beforehand, wait around.
It's crazy.
And the other amazing thing is that the players were still allowed to build. So you could build and run around and jump. So that obviously then you can view the performance from various different angles, you know, build up right to the top and bottom.
Yeah.
And imagine then having your mates in the concert and just saying, hey, why don't you join, you know, the stage that I created? I've got a really good view. So it's got a very engaging and immersive experience.
I mean,
that's
like,
what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean that kicks off so many thoughts in my head. Like because the festival summer, right, which would have started probably by now, is dead. You know, all the big festivals from like Glastonbury, the traditional ones, to Tomorrowland and so on, right? They all gonna be they're not gonna happen. So I think there would be a tremendous opportunity to bring those things into, like, obviously you need the infrastructure. That's why it makes so much sense to use Fortnite, right? Because they have this, you know, where you can build your own world and you can, you know, you can move around, you can be with your friends and so on. So if Fortnite, right, if they would say, like, if they would go to like the guys from Tomorrowland, say like, listen, we have some developers, you know, we're gonna build a Tomorrowland area in Fortnite, right? And we then just gonna do a 3-day Tomorrowland in Fortnite, and we, instead of the 100,000 of people that usually come to your on-site event, we're now gonna stream this to millions and millions of people, you know, like just the brand awareness and the brand building around this would be ridiculous. Like it's super interesting.
Just imagine the merchandising opportunities. So if I'm not mistaken, they had a concert skin for sale. So I don't know, you get like a skin, a t-shirt, a hat, virtual obviously, you know, costs nothing to make. And I think they were giving them for like $5, something like that. And it's something they weren't pushing, but I think that there were a few $1 million made in those 15 minutes, you know.
That's crazy.
And the margin, just imagine the margin on that. I mean, you know, it's really, so I am sold. I think this was just, in a while now, it's been an example of true immersive experience. And, you know, the whole virtual world of you buying the what are they called? The VR scopes,
VR goggles.
VR goggles and looking around.
Like the Facebook ones are the Oculus or something.
Oculus, right? I think before you thought, hey, maybe there's a few years to go. Yes, we've tried them on at, you know, conferences and display stands. But you know what? If this lockdown thing continues, this would be people's escapism.
Well, it's that one, right?
Into a new world.
It's that one, and it's also potentially, I mean, it depends, you know, with some of the events, they want to make it sort of like a constrained quantity of tickets, so it has this exclusive factor, right? Because if you know there's only like whatever 10,000 tickets, and then people sit there like at 12 o'clock in order to get a ticket, it gets this exclusivity branding, which some people seek for. But I would say, you know, for some festivals and so on, where they have, well, potentially way more people would come, but they're on the other side of the world, or they you know, they might not have the money or whatever to get there, and you actually have the physical experience, plus at the same time you have like an immersive virtual experience, you know. I'm pretty sure that it must be possible to, within, for example, Fortnite or whatever, to build like a separate world that you can only unlock if you buy this like festival gear, right? And then and suddenly, where you could have a stadium filled with 60,000 people, maybe you can suddenly get like 6 million people joining your virtual room.
At the end of the day, it's computer code, right? So they can do whatever your mind can think of. You know, I'm sure there are some product owners stressing some coders out, saying, "No, I want it to do X, Y, Z." You know, I was just thinking like crazy, like when Travis Scott did those special effects. You know, was he? Did they have to rebuild everything, or is it were they reusing components? You know, But
no,
I think, you know,
we said like that the whole gaming industry, right, is super interesting for both of us. We're discussing about it a bit before, and I put like, you know, EA and Activision on sort of my stock watch list, and actually when the story broke, I told you, right, when the story broke last week, the first thing I did, like, bloody hell, okay, let's see what the stock price of Epic Games is, and then I actually found out that Epic Games is privately owned, but like 40% owned by Tencent. So the Chinese sort of like super conglomerate. So super interesting. About I think that might be another. It will definitely be a topic for another episode, which is for me, when is Amazon gonna go into gaming? So that's like my big question mark of the year. You know, I think it's just a matter of time. But yeah, that's gonna be. Otherwise, I would have bought that stock right away.
So just coming back to this Fortnite thing, I was just thinking. So they for that concert, it was a free to attend, but obviously the amount of awareness that it's got now is paid. Billions worth of advertising revenue. Okay, so that's that. But there was voluntary of buying merchandise. So that's one aspect of the virtual currencies, right? And buying merchandise, and it's amazing how much money kids do spend on that. You know, it is shocking how much money they pocket money, or asking their parents to buy them, or whatever is. The idea that came to mind was, imagine going to these exclusive concerts, buying exclusive one-off merchandise, right? Then you create a reseller marketplace for those individuals to trade.
Collectible item, 100%.
Because you know what, it can be verified, right? So you know you're not going to get scammed. You know, so imagine you got that Scott Travis T-shirt that he did, the new Bitcoin, the first one. Exactly. Yeah. So
maybe in those concerts you can actually walk around, right? So you still have that game thing. It's the gaming mode where you can actually, you'd be admitted
around your head.
You'd be admitted to the concert, and you'll be there. We have hidden in the concert world, 10 new special digital only releases of the Travis Scott sneaker. Obviously, it's going to be a digital, sneaker, but you can walk around and find it. Yeah, and then people, I'm pretty sure the whole collectible industry, but for virtual products, is going to also explode in the next couple of years, right? Absolutely. Exactly what you just said, like one of something that you can find in Fortnite or any of the other games, right? And then you have that, and you can resell it. There was already, I don't know which game it was in the past. I think it was Diablo or something like that, where there was a reseller market on eBay where you could actually, if you collected a certain amount of, I was not really into that game, but a certain amount of whatever credits or maybe some special sword or something like that, you could resell it on eBay and other people could buy it off you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, my ideas go.
I know my brain's going all over the place as well.
All over the place.
I think we have to accept now that whatever was possible in the physical world there is a possibility of it in the virtual world.
Yeah.
I think we feel like, oh, but there's nothing like a physical touching the product or whatever, physically, emotionally, or whatever. Let's be honest. The folks that are massive Travis Scott fans and they were in that world and they saw that, it was as if you were there, but even better, right? So as long as it triggers the right emotional state in a human being,
absolutely.
Then what is the difference between a physical element and a virtual world? As long as the right nerve is tapped, right?
And I think that the super interesting bit, because like the concept of streaming, maybe like a live concert on television, is not that has been there for ages, right? I think that the big difference does it make is like the streaming on a television or even on YouTube is very static. You just sit there and you watch the screen. But if you actually if it can be a dynamic, immersive experience through like your game character, so you can actually walk around and see other people, and do something and start dancing to the music, with the stupid Fortnite dance. That has a completely different level of interaction to it, which I think could really like push that whole virtual concerts, virtual entertainment, virtual stand-up comedy, whatever, TV, anything you can think of, but you do it through a character that you already sort of familiar with.
We did say that during a crisis, new industries get reinvented, right? And I think we are seeing the emergence of it. Maybe this Fortnite, and I know this thing has been on, they've been on the back burner, they've been around for many years, but it needed something to really propel it to the public domain, So, it's fascinating. I think
that really is. I think the whole e-gaming, and then we said we're going to keep it to half an hour. We're already 6 minutes over, but that's fine.
So one question for you then.
No, because like the last bit. So I think I don't think we have mentioned it on the podcast before, but like for me, the whole e-gaming concept changed in my mind when I heard someone saying, it's like, just imagine, like there's kids nowadays that ask their parents to buy them their first jersey, of a sports team. And it's not Arsenal, it's not Bayern Munich, and it's not the New York Knicks. It's going to be the whatever, Minnesota Rocker. That's the only e-game I know. And they're going to ask them to buy. So the first, sports jersey that they're going to own is actually from an e-gaming company, right? And that's sort of like, because I can relate to that, because I remember when I was like, 6 or so, and I asked my parents to buy me a jersey from VfB Stuttgart, which is my local football team. That really meant something. So now there's kids, actually, they do that from an e-gaming.
So what do you think, Flo, that how far are we away from e-gaming becoming an Olympic sport?
To be honest, I think quite far away. Because if you look at
but it's possible, right? Do you think it's possible?
It is, but it will take a decade or decades. Because if you look at the people who sit at the top of the IOC, International Olympic Committee, IOC, man, no way.
So here's what I think. I think that the e-gaming folks, they don't really give a crap about the Olympics, right? The prize money and the audience, the sponsorship, the advertising, all of a sudden it's going to be like, you know, because what really powers the World Cup is the sponsorship of it, right? So if all of that money starts to transfer that way, there's no reason why the gaming community don't create their own version
100%
of the Olympic, and then tell the traditional guy saying, hey, do you want a piece of this? You know? Because I for a while I was thinking about, you know, we've always thought of Olympics as a physical manifestation of what the human body can do, right? But then, like, there are some sports in there that, you know, and I don't want to upset anybody by saying, look, darts, you know, snooker, you know, I love pool, I love snooker, but it being a sport. But if you really peel back the mechanics of it, it's all about training yourself to be really good at something. And look at the gaming community, they actually practice a lot to get to a stage. So but by that merit, they should be classified as a skill that you harness.
Yeah, and you know, I also think it's going to happen naturally, because at one point, over time, you know, they have added new sports to like the amount of sports that are now in order to stay relevant. Because, like, you know, interests and of people watching the Olympics changes, right? So you need to represent what they actually want to see in what you make part of the competition. You know, like it has history since the Greek ancient times. You know, and you obviously over time you had to add in a couple, you know, like football, basketball, and so on. Like you need to do that in order to get the masses to actually still be interested in it. If it still be just that, you know, maybe it might work, but it would be very niche event, you know, and not like what it is right now. So I think 100% in order not to be irrelevant at one point, but I'm not sure how, you know, that quick, might be how quick.
But I think we don't, it's not a matter of if, but when. I think even that statement is a massive statement in itself.
Yeah. Which I would not have admitted probably that esports will become that big like a couple of years ago, but like, you know, now it's massive. It's massive, and it will be there. It's going to be fun to see the esports actual Olympics together with like you know, wrestling on the same day. Like
yeah, exactly. Good stuff. Well, cool. I think maybe that's a good place to wrap it up, because I know we always try and stick to our half an hour. We're slightly over already, but lots of food for thought, lots of topics maybe for next week.
Yeah, definitely. More so on the tech side and trends thing this week than on the, you know, finding North and careers and life thing. But I think it's fine. We will pick other things.
The beginning segment hopefully gave an aspect of life, right? So we reversed it a little bit. But exactly. No, but it's been good. It's been good.
Cool. All right, then. I think on that note, we're gonna wrap up. I don't have my readout text in front of me, so I'm gonna try to wing it. So, if you guys are watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, give the video a like. If you're listening on Spotify, we would obviously appreciate if you would download the podcast, share it with your friends, colleagues, family, or whoever else you can think of. If you have any questions, if you want to be on the show, any sort of feedback, anything, send us an email to findingnorthpodcast@gmail.com, findingnorthpodcast@gmail.com. And that's it for this week. Have a great week next week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next one. Cheers.
Peace. Thanks.